And hello everybody, it is your old buddy John here with another Stay Awake podcast. Gay marriage. Oh yes. We did abortion last time. Why not? Well, not last time. We did that rock show in between, so. Gay marriage. Let's open up another can of worms, why don't we? Another Pandora's box. Well, I've mentioned many times, not just here, but in other podcasts and whatnot, that I believe in the separation of church and state. I believe that in all things. Sorry, somehow this microphone has gotten pinned under. But let me stress, to be perfectly honest, that I don't buy any of the religious arguments against gay marriage, but the simple fact is we're not supposed to be a theocracy. We're supposed to be a democratic country where the rights of the minority are accepted. And being homosexual or bisexual or transgendered or whatnot is perfectly fine. There's no psychological illness or anything like that. It is a perfectly fine and legitimate lifestyle. Whether it be biological or by choice, it doesn't matter because this is a free nation. If two consenting adults wish to get married and they are of sound mind and body, which generally gay people are, from my experience, then they have the right to do that. No matter what the Bible says, or the Quran, or the Torah, or any other holy book there is, because we base our country not on that, but on the Constitution. And the Constitution says nothing about gay people not getting married. And you could always say, well, why does the government have anything to do with anybody getting married? Well, there's the whole legal stuff about insurance and whatnot. If it weren't for the government regulating marriage, a insurance company could basically say, well, we don't like the fact you're an interracial couple getting married. We're not going to cover your black husband because you're a white wife, or vice versa. So that's the reason why I think government has to regulate marriage, to make sure that there's no discrimination in that at all. So, we have two more cases going before the Supreme Court tomorrow and on Wednesday. We won't know the decisions until probably June. And there are plenty of senators who are changing their minds about the Defense of Marriage Act, which was passed during the Bill Clinton administration, which the then president has now said he is now against, and he wants it to be repealed. It's a very good idea. And to be honest with you, Bill Clinton probably didn't care about gay marriage back then. He's a politician. He was president of the United States. He had to save his own ass back then. No surprise there. And of course, this was the mid-90s when gay marriage was looked down upon by most Americans. And now, more Americans support gay marriage. In some polls, it's as high as 58%. And it's been climbing for the last few years. And obviously, things are changing when at CPAC, about a week or so ago, the big conservative powwow, there were more people at a pro-gay rights panel than there were at an anti-gay rights panel. The pro-gay rights panel was standing room only. There were plenty of seats available at the anti-gay rights panel, and this was at a Republican, conservative, very conservative, almost Tea Party-esque meeting. So, gay marriage is looking to become more and more legal, but the Supreme Court has a habit of overturning it, and already Justice Anthony Scalia, the moron himself, has already said we pretty much know where his vote's going. He believes that gay marriage is not right, and the gays somehow weren't here in the United States when the founding fathers founded this great nation of ours. They somehow came in the 60s. Okay. I'll let you do the Googling on this to find out that is far and away not true. Perhaps in the 1760s or the 1660s, but certainly not in the 1960s. They have been long established here since then. But of course, just as Antonin Scalia probably secretly desires America to be a theocracy, where the Bible is the ultimate law of the land and not the Constitution. There's a reason, ladies and gentlemen, that our founding fathers decided that encoding biblical principle, the Bible, into the Constitution was a very bad idea. You see, in Europe, there were these things called religious wars, where one faction of Christianity fought another faction, whether it was Catholics versus Protestants, or one part of Protestantism against another, or whatnot, or one group of one sect of the Christian faith goes against another, or have not. Yeah, and it gets pretty damn ugly. The worst wars are the religious ones. And the worst atrocities are generally caused when one side believes they have God on their side and the other side is Satan. Generally, that's when you do very naughty things to people, like burn them in oil and burn them at the stake and torture them in inhumane ways, because they are Satan, they are evil, and they must die an agonizing death because God wills it to. Even though there is this thing in the Bible that says, "Thou shalt not kill." Of course, it does contradict stuff so many times about stoning and whatnot, but the whole "thou shalt not kill" thing, of course, the Bible has got plenty of contradictions. I won't go into all of them here because we'd be here until doomsday if I did. And I'd be probably having to buy a bunch of time on Spreaker and SoundCloud and the other areas to just get all the contradictions together, but I won't go into that. But anyway, it's time to legalize it. It's long since time to legalize it. And more people realize, you know what? Who cares if gays get married? We've got more important problems in this country. And the reality is, if gays get married, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. God's not going to ice over America or burn us up with a bunch of fire or flood us or anything like that. The only people that will be really, really upset about it will be Westboro Baptist Church. And does anybody really care about them anymore? They're becoming more irrelevant every day. They've always been loony, and even now the KKK protest against the Westboro Baptist Church. The freaking KKK was protesting against them. Mainly because it was like, hey, we're not like these guys. They're far worse than we are. We just hate black people. These folks hate everybody. Yeah, like I said, the folks at Westboro Baptist Church, when they die, they better be wearing asbestos undies, because they're going to a much hotter place when they meet their Maker. St. Peter's going to be up there at the pearly gate going, Reverend Phelps, no. You can't get in. You're not on the list. You got to go over there. And that's a straight elevator down. Yeah. And we have an aisle seat for you, by the way, so you won't have to watch the inevitable plunge towards the fiery pits of hell. We were that kind to you. We didn't give you a window seat, so you don't have to watch your inevitable eternal doom for being such a hateful bastard. So, but gay marriage. It used to be I was against it because I thought many years ago, when I wasn't as enlightened as I am now, that oh, gay people were just mistaken, and they were, you know, it was a phase. And I went through the old usual, since back in the 80s and the early 90s, when I really didn't know that many gay people. Then I started knowing some gay people, and you know what? They're just like straight people. They're not freaky. They're not crazy. They're not any crazier than any straight people I've ever known. There are actually some gay people that are just like you and me, who sit at home watching the game or watching TV shows or pissing about the latest gossip or latest news from Washington or whatnot, and it's kind of silly, but they're just like us, folks. And to say that they're perverted or anything like that, it's kind of, I mean, and the whole thing about that being pedophiles. Well, generally pedophiles tend to be straight guys messing around with very young, way too young girls. Yeah. Or straight women tending to mess around with very young boys. And, you know, the fact is, most of the gay people I've ever known, in fact, pretty much all of them, have been actually very cool people. There have been one or two that, you know, I wasn't exactly too fond of, but it's not because they were gay, it's because they were assholes. But just because you're an asshole doesn't necessarily mean you're gay, or just because you're gay doesn't mean you're an asshole. But, you know, there are assholes who are gay, and there are gays who are an asshole. So, anyhow, I'm getting off the track. But the simple fact is, it's two people, two consenting adults who wish to get married. The only problem is they're of the same sex. And by the Constitution's, most constitutional scholars believe it'll be legalized anyway, because there is their dictum that says marriage in the Constitution has to be between a man and a woman. Now, if you ask the Founding Fathers what their intent was, they probably would have said, oh, hell no. But you see, they didn't put that down there. And we can't think for what they would think now. And this is the thing that gets me about people who believe we should interpret the Constitution literally. These were people that wrote it back in the 1780s, over almost 230 years ago. That's nearly a quarter of a millennia ago. They had no idea about what even running water would be like, or even an automobile, or a train, or any of that. It used to take 8 days by horse to get from Boston to Philadelphia. Now it takes you 7 or 8 hours by car, or about 2 hours by plane. Probably quicker if you have your own plane like Donald Trump or maybe something like that. But the fact is, they have no idea. I mean, how would you even describe to Thomas Jefferson what a cell phone is? Or John Adams what a computer is? Or even a radio? Or a television? Or a light bulb? They have no idea, they had no idea what life would be like in the United States 230 years later, because they had no idea we would still be here 230 years later. They were just worried about keeping the country going for 2 years later or 20 years later. So, all this nonsense about constitutional literalism is bullcrap. It is. You have to adapt to the times. And the times dictate that more people support gay rights. And they support this minority, and gays are always going to be a minority. Probably. You never know. They support their equality more and more every day. Will there be people who will always oppose gay rights and everything? Of course there are. There are people who oppose interracial relationships, interracial marriage, interracial adoption to this very day. They just are irrelevant. And that was only 30 some odd years ago, or 40 years ago. Hell, it's going to be 50 years ago now. But the fact is that gay marriage is going to be legal in this country very, very soon. It may be by the time this ruling comes down. It may be by the time more laws are passed. But until either a constitutional amendment passes outright banning it, or a constitutional amendment passes outright approving it, or this court rules that it's legal, we still got to fight. Now, I'm sure if the court sides for get marriage equality, all the social conservatives will go apeshit and go, we got to pass a constitutional amendment to defend marriage. There's only one problem. The demographics of voters are changing, especially in the South. In recent polls, the increase in Republican votes have been only limited to Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And even then, only in parts of Texas, and most parts in the northeastern part of Texas. While Democratic votes have been actually gaining in most areas. And if you look at the way that the election, last year's election went, the only reason the Republicans even kept the House was because they gerrymandered districts, because they won a lot of seats in 2010 when the liberals sat at home and let the Tea Party win. That will not happen in 2014. There's already, and from here on out, the liberals realized their mistake. They sat on their hands in 2010 because they got pissed off that Obama wasn't going fast enough. They let the Tea Party win, and they've been paying for it ever since. Well, the Tea Party is going to get their ass kicked in 2014 because a lot of these Republican districts are finding out that, hey, maybe we shouldn't have voted Republican anyway because they're not getting anything done. All they're doing is sitting up there going, no, 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 no. You know, they're not even trying to work with the president. And the president's been trying to work with them. He may not like him, but at least he was trying to work with him. And it's not like with Clinton where the Republicans didn't like him, but they at least worked with him, at least tried to compromise. Here, they're not even trying to compromise. Is it because Barack Obama's black? Who knows? Doesn't matter the reason. It's stupid. The whole core of politics is compromise. And of course, what's going to happen as soon as the Supreme Court, which I predict will probably legalize gay marriage by a 5-4 vote, it'll probably come down to Justice Roberts again, Chief Justice Roberts, who will probably rule for it. You know, Thomas and Scalia and two others will probably go against it. And the usual suspects will go for it. It could be 6-3. It could be 7-2 for all we know. And Clarence Thomas and Antonin Scalia are the only two that vote against it. We know those two are going to vote against it. They don't even need to show up the next 2 days. We know where they're going to be. Thomas doesn't even have to show up. He'll be there. He won't say a damn thing. He hasn't said a damn thing in all the years he's been there. Why did you even bother signing up? All you do is write the opinions. Don't even say a damn thing during any of the sessions. I bet you do Thurgood Marshall real proud, don't you, Clarence Thomas? Real proud. Well, there'll be another African-American justice to actually do something more than what you've done, and Barack Obama will probably be able to appoint that person real soon because Scalia is not getting any younger, thank God. Maybe I'll have the temerity of actually, I don't know, resigning before he gets even more disgraced than he already is. Do I need to really go into any of the conflicts of interest he's had in the past that he hasn't recused himself from? I could go on and on and on about them. I won't, because we're talking about gay marriage here. And gay marriage should be legal and will be legal. It's going to continue to be a fight. I can guarantee you the pro-family groups or anti-gay groups or anti, we don't like anything other than G-rated movies and Christian conservatism and gospel music and all this, guess what? You're going to lose. Social conservatism is dying in this country. It's dying because people who have been in social conservative households, who were raised in social conservatism, as soon as they got out, a lot of them start realizing there's a much wider world out there, and maybe, just maybe, they weren't right after all. Maybe, just maybe, God isn't speaking through Pat Robertson or the Phelps or the folks behind family, Focus on the Family, or D.J. Robertson or Charles Stanley or all these others. Maybe God is speaking through other ways, like talking about helping the homeless and the poor and the sick and the needy and the elderly, which for some reason the Tea Party seem to have a problem with, because they don't want the government doing anything at all. Because government's bad. Government's bad, okay? Well, apparently the younger generation, quite a lot of people of ethnic backgrounds, African American, Asian, Hispanic, young people like I mentioned, even poor people, middle class people, are realizing that the GOP doesn't represent them anymore. And they've realized that something that my grandfather, God rest his soul, saw a long time ago, that religion is a smokescreen for the GOP to pass overly capitalist, or more likely corporatist, I should say corporatist, basically taking away, eating away at the middle class, keeping the poor poor, keeping the rich richer, keeping the super rich even more richer, trickle-down economics. He saw through that. My granddad didn't go past 6th grade, but he was a Baptist preacher. He saw all this coming. He knew it a long time ago. He told me when I was a little kid to watch out for Reagan. And Reagan and the moral majority were nothing but a smokescreen. And he saw it all. The wise man that he was. He saw through it all and saw that religious conservatism in politics is nothing more than a smokescreen to keep people in line so that the corporatists get their way when it comes to the ballot box. Well, people are starting to wake up and realize what's really going on. The super rich are trying to control you. They're trying to tell you how to vote. They're trying, through Americans for Prosperity and Freedom Works and all these other conservative think tanks, or lack of thinking tanks in some cases, how to vote. That's why Citizens United is such a bad thing, because more than likely most of the money is going to conservative think tanks. Are there liberals that spend millions and millions of dollars? Of course there are, but the conservatives are outspending liberals in that way by a long shot. The Koch brothers want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get congressmen and senators and presidents to see things their way, and only their way, which is pay the workers barely anything, maximize profits, minimize benefits, minimize cost, make lots and lots of money, and the hell with that. I got mine, fuck you, basically. That's what their whole thing is. Gay marriage is a smokescreen. Abortion is a smokescreen. Prayer in schools is a smokescreen, because the only reason they get any attention is because the conservative media, Fox, Limbaugh, Hannity, and all these others basically go apeshit because, oh, it's a threat to American values. What about the American value of an honest day's work, for an honest day's pay for an honest day's work? What about the values of a living wage? What about being able to have only one job, and not only paying your making ends meet, but having a little extra to do a little something with, like take a decent vacation, or have a fine house or a nice car. Nothing fancy, but just a nice house. Maybe have a basement or something. More and more of the young people today are living in apartments, mobile homes, or living at home, or living in arrangements where basically they're having roommates all the time. They can't live independently because they can't afford it anymore. No wonder so many young people are going back home. They can't afford it. They're burdened with student loans, and now the Republicans, by the way, are wanting to repeal student loan reform because they want to make sure all these students pay every single penny back plus interest. Note the interest part. And to hell if they're burdened. Whereas if we were smart, we would have ways of having these students work things off so if they can't pay it back immediately, at least we get something out of it, like volunteer hours or such like bring back AmeriCorps. What happened to AmeriCorps or Freedom Corps or something so that we can get something out of this investment? Like with teaching. If you work with social work, if you work in the field for a year, you get a year off from your tuition and whatnot. But that goes against capitalism, the free market ideals and all this bullshit it does. Gay marriage is going to be legal because it is constitutionally viable, constitutionally accurate, constitutionally sound, and more people every day begin to support it. More and more Republicans are starting to support it. The writing is on the wall, and the Tea Party is scared of it. The establishment is starting to reestablish themselves, and the GOP establishment realizes if we keep letting the Tea Party yank our chain, we're going to lose big in 2014 and probably in 2016 to Hillary Clinton, and maybe in elections after that. And just a few years ago, we talked about a permanent Republican majority. It may very well be a permanent Republican minority, like it was for many, many years. So, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Pat Robertson, D. James Kennedy, Charles Stanley, all these moral majority people and conservative media types and corporate executives and CEOs and all this who want to tell you how to run your life, not just in a religious way, but in a corporate way. Your day's coming to an end, folks. The middle class and the poor deciding we want to take charge of this democracy again, just like we had it back in the day. Back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and in the 70s. When, I don't know, but things were pretty good in the 50s and the 60s. You know, when unions were strong, when minimum wage was actually paying a real wage, where there was such a thing as a living wage, when a man could work one job and a woman could stay at home in their job, if you have a traditional marriage, or more than likely if you were a single person, you only had to work one job and you had a decent house, and maybe you could actually get married and have the American dream. Now a lot more and more people realize they may not have the American dream. Starts with gay marriage. Liberalism is winning again, as it should. Conservatism is starting to lose. You've had it for 30 some odd years. Now you get to see what the other side acts like. Hope you enjoyed it. That's it for me. I'm John Thomas Hill. Good night, good luck, and may the good news be yours.